Hello, my name is Jonathan DiClemente, and I am a student pilot that flies out of Oakland County Airport, pursuing a career as an airline pilot. I would like to briefly explain the physics of flight and the basic laws of aerodynamics to give an intro-level understanding to how aircraft manage to get from place to place. So let's get started. First, allow me to explain the reasoning behind the shape of an aircraft's wings. That is really what allows it to leave the ground. Here is a picture of what's called an airfoil, that is essentially the shape that generates lift. But to explain how lift is created, I need to explain a few things first. So to use water as an example, when it rains and falls from clouds, it takes on the shape of the air. Therefore, we can conclude that water is in fact the most aerodynamic shape in nature because air takes the path of least resistance around the water, like this, and shapes it accordingly. So when air travels around the water, the pressure and speed of the air remains constant and relative to the speed of the droplet. But there is a reason that the airfoil is in this particular shape and not in the shape of a water droplet, which, after all, do not generate lift. So according to a principle derived by the mathematician Daniel Bernoulli, as air travels over this part of the airfoil, there is a pressure change relative to air traveling over this part of the airfoil, because the air is being accelerated as it goes over this curvature. So here, pressure is higher, and here, pressure is lower, due to the Bernoulli principle that basically concludes that with an increase in velocity comes a drop in air pressure. So here you have low pressure, and here you have relative normal pressure. This imbalance is exactly what produces the lift effect. Now that you understand how an aircraft manages to leave the ground, let me explain the fundamental forces that act on an aircraft as it moves through the air. One, obviously being lift, but in order for it to be generated, there must be a force that pulls the aircraft through the air. This is known as thrust and comes from the spinning movement of a propeller or a jet turbine engine. Now, with thrust comes its opposite reaction, drag, which is the friction that is created while an aircraft moves, causing it to resist thrust or vice versa. So when you add thrust, you create drag and lift, as I just explained with the Bernoulli principle. Now the last force is simply gravity, that pulls the plane toward the earth and is counteracted by lift. The appropriate combination of these forces is exactly what allows an aircraft to fly. So here we see all of the fundamental parts that are specific to maneuvering an aircraft. Here you have the elevator, which controls the pitch of the plane, which is the vertical up and down movement. Here are the ailerons that control the bank and roll movement, which are essentially responsible for turning the plane. Here are the flaps that become extended from the wing when more lift is needed when traveling at slower speeds in order to land safely. Then lastly, here is the rudder, which controls the side-to-side movement, which is mainly used for landing in heavy crosswinds. So in conclusion, you all have a fundamental understanding of how an airplane flies, and I hope this video has taught you something and has given you an appreciation for the laws of physics. Thank you for watching, and again, I hope everyone learned something.